What up? What up?
In November 2022, a tip led them to a neighboring state.
We had received some information from an individual regarding the Delphi murders in Indiana, and they had said for all of these reasons, we believe it may be the same person.
An item of clothing was missing from one of the girls, and, quote, it also appeared the girls' bodies were moved and staged, leading investigators to theorize that the killer took a souvenir from the crime scene and maybe took pictures.
Oh, yeah.
They know of one person
out.
because of DNA, but that doesn't necessarily mean that person acted alone. That's not to say that there were multiple people, but they just know of one right now because of DNA.
May 29, 2011, which was 7 years ago. That crime scene, of all the crime scenes I've been on, was the most unique by far.
Bill and his wife were brutally killed. Cause of death, stabbing, and blunt force trauma. But the crime scene is something investigators and federal experts are still scratching their heads about.
Yep. What's up, Metal?
There were
How you doing?
Symbols. There were items that were used at the scene to indicate
What's up, D?
strong feelings or opinions about the victims, Bill and Peggy.
Detective Cox says the evidence proves the killer or killers were either with the bodies for several hours or came back to the home long after the murders.
What up? What up? How's everybody doing? Today's going to be super random, I think. Been a busy weekend. Figured I'd might have an hour and a half to mess around on YouTube. What are you guys up to? True crime and some other stuff. What's up, Sees Through?
Corbett joins us live from Oak Brook condominiums where the two were murdered. And Dave, so does this new DNA evidence clear Charles Stevenson?
No, not necessarily. They know of one person because of DNA, but that doesn't necessarily mean that person acted alone. That's not to say that there were multiple people, but they just know of one right now because of DNA.
What's up, Vertigo?
Our lives were changed in an instant when our parents, two of the most loving and
I
caring
was thinking
people
the same
God ever
thing when I
created,
hit. Let's
were
go.
brutally and senselessly murdered.
Where it was discovered, it could only come from one person, and that person is the murderer.
Have you checked the DNA of Charles Robert Stevenson?
We have. I can tell you that's not his DNA.
These detectives say they've interviewed over 250 people in 14 states. You've already gone back to those people that you previously interviewed as people of interest and checked their DNA?
Or in the course of the investigation, gotten it when we interviewed them.
Their killer's DNA is now in the FBI's system and is not a match to anyone, anywhere, who's ever given up a DNA sample either voluntarily or involuntarily. That is, anywhere
Huh?
the FBI system
Say
covers.
my name.
This
say
individual
my
has to be careful
name.
not to make any mistakes in a lot of different areas, not just in the fact that he may be arrested for a crime that gets him put into the system somewhere in the penal system.
Damn, look how young
But
he
he
is.
can't make any mistakes to where his DNA would come up to any.
What's going on? What's going on with that little lapel there? Is that a Masonic lapel?
Place where it would be compared to the system.
We're hoping to jar somebody's memory. We're
Well, it's definitely the same one as that. Whatever that is.
hoping that you remember back and something about what somebody said was suspicious, that they couldn't account for their time, that maybe they were
What's
injured.
up, Shadow?
Maybe that's how the DNA
Good
was
to
left.
see you.
One day, we will stand face to face in a courtroom, and you will face justice for the despicable, cowardly act you committed against our family.
Their family said the $100,000 reward is only good for 90 days, and they did that because they want anyone who knows anything, no matter how insignificant they may think it is, or whether you think the detectives already know about it or not, they want you to call and let them know. Live in Burlington, Dave Culberth, Fox 19 News.
Culberth joins us live from Oak Brook Condominiums, where the two were.
How's everybody doing? I'm just going through pretty much everything that I have here. So it's going to be pretty random.
Couple, it's been nearly a decade since Bill and Peggy Stevenson were murdered inside their home in Boone County.
A detective working the couple's case is revealing a new information about the investigation.
Jessica Schmidt joins us live with where things stand right now. This is a story you will see only right here on Fox 19 Now.
Yeah, Robin, Amber, so Sunday actually marks 10 years since the Stevensons were murdered in the Boone County area. And I spoke with the detective who has handled the case tonight, and that detective told me it's not a cold case, even though time has passed. In fact, he actually says they have some solid leads that they got recently that they are continuing to follow up on.
10 years is long enough.
It's been a decade full of painful moments, cherished memories, and unanswered questions for the family of Bill and Peggy Stevenson.
They were open and friendly with everybody they met. You know, they didn't meet a stranger.
The Boone County couple died in May 2011 when they were brutally murdered inside their Florence home. The 74-year-olds were well known and well liked for their work in Christian ministry.
They were very involved with the church that they went to for years. Dad was a deacon, mom played the organ.
Although time has passed, Detective Coy Cox says he and his partner are following up on 3 solid leads received within the past year. One of those tips led them to a truck driver, a man who used to live in northern Kentucky but moved to California. Knowing Bill worked with a chapel ministry at a truck stop, they tracked that trucker down.
We have collected DNA from him, and that's been submitted to the state.
Although the crime scene was complex because something had been moved and then staged in each room, Cox says they do have evidence. And at this point, they can't rule out that more than one person may have been involved.
Who could do this to them? You know, why them?
We have a pretty good idea of the persons that we are interested in.
Detectives aren't revealing possible motives, but Beth says she and her 2 brothers will never understand how someone could take their parents' lives so senselessly in such a horrific way.
I think it's one of the hardest things that you can go through as a family. It's a nightmare that has gone on for 10 years.
They deserve an answer. I wish we could give them one, and hopefully soon we can.
Now, Detective Cox says he isn't sure exactly when they will get those DNA test results back, but did say it probably will take some time. Of course, we'll keep you posted on those. We also know tonight there is a $50,000 reward for information in this case. So on that note, Detective Cox says it is never too late to call and give them a tip. I mean, they just got one last year and it's already given them new leads. So if you know something tonight, you are asked to call the Boone County Sheriff's Office. Reporting live, I'm Jessica Schmidt, Fox 19 Now.
It was a very complex, brutal, disturbing crime scene.
One of Boone County's most horrific killings remains unsolved. It's 12 years later, but the detectives working the Stevenson case are leaving no stone unturned. In recent months, their investigation has led them even to Indiana to look at a possible connection to this highly publicized Delphi murders.
Yeah, Jessica Schmidt digs into these new developments in part 1 of this story from Cincinnati's Crime Vault.
Detective Coy Cox and his partner make up Boone County's cold case unit, yet they say the murder of Bill and Peggy Stevenson is far from cold. In fact, they've traveled to at least 14 other states.
Yeah, you got to hit the
follow
thumbs
on
up, guys.
leads,
What the hell?
including several trips to Delphi, Indiana. And they're pursuing potential breaks in the case using a DNA profile. May 29th, 2011 was a sunny Sunday in the suburbs.
It was a spring day, like most around here in northern
Hey,
Kentucky.
Indy, good
But
to
the
see you.
day quickly turned dark after a gruesome discovery.
It was a very complex, brutal, disturbing crime scene.
Two people, both 74 years old, were found dead inside their Boone County home. A beloved husband and wife, Bill and Peggy Stevenson. A concerned family member found them when they didn't show up for church.
We think it was, a very quick surprise attack. There was some blunt force trauma.
Detective Coy Cox and his partner Tim Adams were sent to the scene. The house had been altered and the bodies were staged.
There were things that were done to their bodies that was horrific. They changed several things in the scene, which is really, really unusual for any murder scene anywhere in the country or in the world.
Whoever killed the couple did not take off right away.
There was quite a bit of time that the perpetrators, the killers, stayed in the residence or felt comfortable coming back to the scene.
In general, detectives believe that kind of behavior points to a suspect who knows the victims. And Bill and Peggy Stevenson were loved by many.
They were amazing people, good Christian people. They wanted to share their faith and their love with the community. And
they've missed out on so much. They've missed out on weddings. They've missed out on 3 new great-grandbabies, graduations, like I said, weddings of the grandkids. All the grandkids are married.
That's Bill and Peggy's daughter, Beth Stevenson Victor. She describes her parents as devoted churchgoers, a couple who loved their big family. Peggy was the quiet one, an experienced and talented musician.
Played for many weddings, funerals, played for a couple of the grandkids' weddings.
Hey, Michelle.
Yeah, she loved to play the organ. She played the piano too.
Bill was the opposite, known as the life of the party. A man heavily involved in ministry, he shared his faith with truck drivers every Sunday at a truck stop in Florence.
They had a trailer out that they would open up during the week, and if truckers wanted to stop in and pray, they would pray with them.
That connection to the community became a possible lead for detectives Cox and Adams. Today, they handle the sheriff's cold case unit, but they're still investigating the Stevenson case. Over the years, they've interviewed a lot of truck drivers.
Early on in the investigation, we had information that someone had been at the truck stop looking for Bill pretty aggressively, banging on the door of the chapel, asking if anyone had seen Bill.
There are truckers they've ruled out, others still on their radar. They've also looked into Charles Stevenson, the nephew of Bill and Peggy. Detective Cox says they've even spoken to him recently. Stevie is locked up, spending life in prison for beating an Indiana woman to death with a skillet.
We feel pretty comfortable that that's in a good place. There is no final statement on there. It isn't that he's been cleared. But we have certainly vetted him in every way possible.
One of the largest developments in the case could still bring them the break they need to close it. Detective Cox says they have an unknown DNA profile.
We don't know who that DNA belongs to, and it was found at our crime scene.
It is complex, so genealogy isn't an option, at least right now. There is testing they can do to try to find a match, and that's something they're actively pursuing.
We're just still hopeful that they'll come up with the right evidence that they need, and a confession would be great. But we're still hopeful that they'll solve it.
More than a decade later, tips continue to come in. Detectives even traveled across state lines in recent weeks to see if what happened to the Stevensons has any connection to the murder of 2 young girls in Delphi.
We had received some information from an individual regarding the Delphi murders in Indiana, and they had said for all of these reasons, we believe it may be the same person that was involved in the Stevenson case.
There's still much more to share, and part 2 will explain what detectives are doing now with that DNA profile, and will tell you exactly what led them to Delphi and what's happening now with that lead. Plus, Bill and Peggy's daughter shares more about the impact this tragedy has had on the family. Part 2 is at 10:30.
Never wake up from, and that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy.
So for nearly 10 or
What's up,
12
Leslie?
years, the dark, devastating murders of Bill and Peggy Stevenson have left a lot of loved ones just living in fear.
Yeah, answers could be coming as detectives follow up on new leads involving DNA testing and a potential connection to Delphi, Indiana.
Jessica Schmidt explains the very latest developments in part 2 of this story from Cincinnati's Crime Vault.
Well, at this stage of the investigation, detectives tell me they are not prepared to rule anything or anyone
Indiana.
out. They've tried everything, including talking to mediums and psychics and announcing a $50,000 reward for information.
Is
And
that the
they're
right
working on some of their
nomenclature?
latest leads right now. The disturbing deaths of Bill and Peggy Stevenson left so many in the Boone County community shattered.
It was just horrible, just to find out that they're both gone and that it wasn't an accident, wasn't carbon monoxide. It was at the hands of somebody else. It was almost too much to bear.
The couple was murdered inside their own home in May 2011 after living lives filled with love and ministry. Their daughter,
up, Moon?
Beth, calls it an incredibly scary situation.
You're constantly looking over your shoulder. And just up until about 3 years ago, my front blinds never opened. Just within the last 3 years, I've been able to sit with the blinds open.
It was a complex crime scene.
It's pretty bad that somebody could stay, that they could stage something and stay with bodies like that for, multiple hours.
She said stage something and stay with bodies. Yeesh.
It's pretty sick.
That's why detectives Coy Cox and Tim Adams are not willing to close the door on anything.
We are careful in this case because of the complexity of some of the evidence, not to say that anyone has been ruled out, but we certainly take it all the way down the path as far as we can to where it's like, okay, we don't see the
Yeah,
need
Michelle,
to go
you
on
can't
down this
punch
path
in
because it's
email
not
addresses
looking like
and
that is
YouTube
our
for
individual.
some
In
reason.
November 2022, a tip led them
I
to a
think I
neighboring
can
state.
We
on
had
my own
received
channel, but
some
that's it.
information from an individual regarding the Delphi murders in Indiana, and they had said for all of these reasons, we believe it may be the same person that was involved in the Stevenson case.
Right away, detectives started looking into a possible connection between Bill and Peggy's 2011 murder and the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German in Delphi, Indiana in 2017, a case that's garnered national attention.
There's things that will make you really interested in a case, simply more than just somebody saying, hey, we think this person might have been involved. But we had a little piece of information that really made that case specifically.
Huh?
11 murder and the murders of Abby Williams and Libby German in Delphi, Indiana in 2017, a case that's garnered national attention.
There's things that will make you really interested in a case, simply more than just somebody saying, hey, we think this person might have been involved. But we had a little piece of information that really made that case specifically interesting to us.
The information pointed Boone County investigators toward a specific person who had a specific item they were interested
Specific
I'm
person?
not going to tell you about
and
that, what that
a
item was.
specific item.
We've recently been in the northern part of Indiana, investigating this guy, following him around, looking for things, collecting all
Following
of the
him around.
information and the evidence that we would need to at least
Trying to get
vet
his
him as
DNA.
best we could with our case. He was cooperative. We were able to go down that path with him, and he articulated good reason to why that may have existed.
They sent what they found to Indiana State Police, since they are handling the murder investigation of Abby and Libby. To be clear, Detective Cox says their investigation into a potential link between the two cases did not include Richard Allen.
We received information from Indiana as it related to some persons, and we forwarded that to them. We did not send them the information that led them to Richard Allen. We sent them information that may have had some parallel consistencies with where they are with that case right now.
When Boone County detectives were in Delphi, Allen was already in jail, where he has been since October of 2022, accused of Abby and Libby's murders.
I know that sounds a little cloak and dagger, but I'm just sorry about that. We're not going any further with that.
That's not the only lead they're following.
We have two gentlemen that are in the trucking profession that we have collected DNA from, and we are awaiting response back from the Kentucky State Police Lab.
They're waiting on results from the lab to see if the truck driver's DNA matches the unknown profile found at the Stevenson crime scene. It has Detective Cox feeling hopeful. As someone who has been on the case since day one, it's personal.
That's hard. That's on my watch. That's my case. I want to solve it. I don't want to say it's more special, but it's a very special case, and really like to get it solved, as we would all of them, obviously. But yeah, this one has a little extra, tug.
For Bill and Peggy's family, all of these developments feel like a step toward peace, justice, and healing.
Somebody deserves to pay for what they did. And I think we owe it to them. I keep looking at their picture. We owe it to them, to find answers for them.
We brought up a lot of leads in this two-part story: DNA testing, the nephew, Stevie Stevenson, truckers, and of course, that possible connection to Delphi. So where does it all stand right now? Well, Detective Cox stressed they have not ruled anyone out in the Stevenson case. So even though some leads don't look as likely, they haven't eliminated any of them completely. Now, he won't say if they have any specific suspects or people of interest, but told me he does believe whoever did it has committed other crimes. He did confirm they know the exact time the couple died because of a medical device inside one of the victims, something that could help them pinpoint the killer. Anyone with information on this case is urged to call it in right away. Now, you can watch all of our Crime Vault stories online right now on fox19.com or on our free news app. We also have a podcast called Cincinnati's Crime Vault Beyond the Broadcast. An episode on this case, the Stevenson case, will drop next month with more details from detectives. Jessica Schmidt, Fox 19 Now.
They sound like a really
He killed an Aurora, Indiana woman by hitting her with a pepper grinder and a skillet.
And today, the same jury that found Charles Steve Stevenson guilty of murdering 67-year-old Lee Jennings recommended that he get life in prison without the chance of parole. WLW2 News 5's Brian Hamrick now. He was in the courtroom when that verdict was read.
Well, it's guilty on both murder and robbery, which means in the sentencing phase, the jury also determines how Stevenson will spend the rest of his life. Charles Steve Stevenson remains silent. Mr. Stevenson, what's your reaction to the verdict? Not only about the guilty verdict, but as the jury determined his sentence, finding he should spend the rest of his life in prison, a sentence that the family of Lee Jennings has been waiting to hear.
My reaction is finally some level of relief. Man,
what's up, Micro?
got what I believed he deserved.
And Baby Doll.
What we've come here from the beginning is justice for Lee Jennings and justice for her family.
Lee Jennings was killed in March of last year in her Aurora home. The jury determined that Stevenson beat her to death with a pepper grinder
Under the
skillet.
Dome. That's a good
defense
book.
team called
It's a
Stevenson's
good
grown
Stephen
children
King
to the
book.
stand. His daughter Sarah told the jury her father was a very kind person, and his son Farley said he respectfully
long, but yeah, you'll read
disagreed
it.
with the verdict, one that will be
Great
challenged.
book.
Steve has indicated he will definitely appeal this matter. He is maintaining his innocence.
For now, Charles Steve
Moon
Stevenson
Crystal says, I think
leaves
Alex
the
Voorhees
courthouse
was
as a
credited. I
convicted
don't know.
killer.
He did tip it in,
Put it,
but
sentenced
I
to
think
death
there was
by
multiple tips.
incarceration, and it's still
I
not
don't know if
determined
his
which
tip
prison
was the tip.
Stevenson will call home. Brian Hemrick,
Because they talked about an
WLWT,
object.
News 5.
Couple, it's been nearly a
Yeah.
decade since
I
Bill.
think that might be a different situation. We talked to Alex about it. He says he doesn't know anything about an object or anything like that. So I was just going through all of my true crime content. Figured I would share it with you guys as we go through it.
reported he was surprised a dead body was found in the creek across from his home.
I'm like, what the hell's going on? I had no clue.
But police claim Matthew Haverly knew exactly what was going on. Authorities say the body was his mother's, 60-year-old Patricia Haverly, and now he is charged with murder and abusing a corpse. In the interview, he came up with every hypothesis in the book.
I think it was kind of a hit, and something happened. Something went bad, and this is like a rural area, so they just wanted to plant the body somewhere else. It would be like a place where people from the city would want to put a body because most likely they wouldn't be found.
He even addressed how his mother would feel.
I'm guessing like my mother, she would be concerned. And probably a lot of the other neighbors would be concerned.
Neighbors are shocked.
It's heartbreaking because he comes across concerned.
That's kind of weird. That's kind of weird. You got
this dude's like, it's kind of weird. That shit's yeah, that shit's weird.
People like that running around.
An autopsy shows his mother died from head trauma. Haverly is being held without bail and has not yet entered a plea. For InsideEdition.com, I'm Lisa Wojcicki. Reporter he was surprised a dead body.
Yeah, that's a creepy story. What's up, Miss Emily? Do you think all 10 of the Gilgo murder victims founded are related? What do you mean related? Why some in bags and others were some in pieces? I don't know. I know that the elements can cause things to become in pieces, so I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that. I didn't know they were in pieces. What's up, CJK? Hey, what's up, Beth? Good to see you. Harvey. Good to see everybody. See what else we got in here. Oh, Michelle, I just got your email. Let's see. What are you talking about here? Sleuth, could you please put my contact email? No, I'm not going to put your email. If you need to contact somebody, I mean, get a hold of them. That's not up to me. I'll put it out here. Michelle O 633.youtube@gmail.com. There. You know, that's not, I don't know why you keep putting that on me. That's not my thing. I don't know. If you need to reach somebody, why? I'm not going to put it in the description of my video. If you need to reach them, then get a hold of them. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. Sassy, what's up? Hey, what's up, Tracy? Good to see you. What? Digital said, did you see they found an underground soundproof room at Lisk suspect house? Wow. That is crazy. I can't hear Sleuth. You guys can't hear me? Hey, what's up, Sassy? Thank you, Beth.
They practiced it. They were considered dabblers in it. But actually, this being a cult crime, I have my doubts.
Wiccans or, whatever umbrella you fall under is usually going to be women.
It's okay now. Well, I didn't change anything, so.
I don't know a thing about anything like that. Who knows that you're Wiccan? Nobody. I'm a solitary practitioner. Nobody knows that I'm a Wiccan. If you know about the blue moon and all that kind of stuff, you do. Well, I know about the blue moon. I know it's two full moons, but I mean, it's been all over the radio.
I don't know. I know everything about the blue moon.
Cover them to keep them warm after they kill them. I don't know.
See, that's one thing that kind of stood out, covering them to keep them warm. So I'm not quite sure what that is. Is that you, Shadow?
Yeah, it's me.
Okay, all right. I'll take that cover. How are you doing? Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Wanted to talk about the Stevenson case a little bit.
Sure.
Very interesting case.
Yeah, the connection between that and Delphi, that and kind of with this case here. You ever heard of the Blue Moon murders?
Hang on a minute. The Blue Moon murders?
Yeah.
No, I haven't looked into that case.
It was a ritual killing. This guy killed, I think, his parents, and it had something to do with the Wiccan religion and the Blue Moon, and it kind of ties in with a little bit with what was going on with the Stevenson case.
Well, the Stevenson case is really unusual. There's a few facts in that case where I find really interesting. One of them being that there was no forced entry into the home, and that the Stevensons had recently moved into that house that they were living in. They hadn't been in that house that long. They had only lived there, I believe, 3 or 4 months into that house. That was one of the things that I found very interesting. And it also appeared that the way the murder scene was left at the house, that it is some type of ritualistic killing, and that whoever did the murders, they wanted to send a message, and they did send a message. They left a message in the home, which police are trying to figure out what it means.
They moved things within the home from room to room, and
Right.
they also marked up some of the photographs showing disdain for certain members of the family.
Right. That tells me that the killer, he stalked these two people that lived in the home. The parents, Bill and Peggy, they were stalked, and he knew, the killer did, exactly how to get into the home. Now, with that said, one, did the killer have a key? Was it someone that previously lived in that home or house?
Oh, is that what you were getting at by them just recently moving in?
Yeah, that's a part of it. Or did the killer know the victims on a much more personal level?
What about their son or whatever that was mentioned recently? He's facing charges, unrelated but similar.
Yeah, they looked into him very extensively, and they took his DNA.
Maybe
His
like the
DNA,
CSAM type thing.
Not to my knowledge, but he was into drugs very heavily at the time, and that's why he needed the money, was to pay off for his drug habit, which was obituates that he was using during the course of before he ended up doing the murder in Indiana. Now, there's a possibility that whoever he was moving drugs for or buying them from could be involved in this. There's some potential there. But as far as him himself being involved in the murder, the DNA police have stated that he has been ruled out, that his DNA does not match the killer's.
Oh, what do you make of the trucker preacher angle?
I think that could be another scenario possibility that my idea there is that the person at the truck stop, it could be just somebody that really was having problems in their life and just really wanted to talk to Bill and get spiritual guidance
Just
from
happened to
Bill.
be around that time.
And it just happened to be around that time.
I like that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. And that might just be, something that doesn't really pertain to this at all. However, there's another side to this, and I've been investigating this for a little while now, that this ritualistic killing, the way the murders happened, I will say this, that they know exactly what time one of the victims perished because of a medical device within one of the victims.
That's true.
And so that gives them a time frame of within the murders. Now back to the trucker.
They died between 1 and 4 a.m.
Right. And the killer stayed in the home for a
1 second.
long time.
Medical device that had been implanted in the body of that victim. This may have been a pacemaker, defibrillator, or some other medical device capable of recording time. Okay, sorry, just wanted to clear that up.
Yeah, that's all correct. So I will say this much about the murders, what happened to these two people, that it was a horrific murder. And it was a shock and awe moment for the person finding the victims that day, that next morning, when they did not show up for church. It was also a very shocking moment for law enforcement, who arrived on scene afterwards and entered the home.
And there's also this comment here. There is another strange comment from Cox here. He said that the person who killed Bill and Peggy may have believed themselves justified in their actions, and that their motive may have been rooted in a disagreement over correct Christian practices.
Yes. And
that kind of reminds me of Delphi, like the whole non-secular stuff.
Okay, but there's another side to this. I don't believe that the Stevenson murder and the Delphi murders, I do not believe that they are connected in any way.
I agree.
I believe that Richard Allen,
knowingly, I don't think that they knowingly are connected. I think something at each crime scene is the same. So there's something at each crime scene that has something to do with what motivates people to commit these types of crimes.
Well, this type of crime, this real ritualistic crime.
Yeah, there you go. That's the word right there. Ritualistic. That's the word.
Yes, that is the word. And the way it was done, and the staging of the house and the posing of the bodies, that type of crime is only about a 1% crime in the way that kind of murder is done in that type of crime.
The fact that they stayed with the body as well, I think, is part of it.
That's another thing, that the person or persons who did this murder, they were in the home for an extensive period of time, well beyond a regular robbery, assault, or rape or anything like that, where more normal crimes are, they get in, they do what they do, and they get out. This person,
investigators here said that the scene, the killers wanted it to be found that way.
Yes, they did. The person that did the murders, they wanted the house to look a certain way. They wanted it to be found that way, and they wanted to send a message. Now, I was going to do a video on this, but
well, you should. The videos you make are great. I watch them all.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I try to do my due diligence to investigate things as best that I can.
You have a reporter's voice too.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother story. in itself. But back to the killer here, he stayed in the house, like you said, for an extensive period of time, and this is very abnormal. And it was a ritualistic crime scene, and that's only a 1%, in that. So it makes it extremely rare. Now,
I don't mean to cut you off, but here they kind of were suggesting that they may have been trying to present the idea of different motives.
to throw law enforcement off, that could be too. And the killer could be someone extremely close to the family, someone that is a friend or a business acquaintance of Bill. Bill was an insurance salesman. He had dealings in insurance for some time. So I'm sure that they have looked through a lot of the personal data and the records and gone through all of that. But there was something interesting that kind of threw up in my mind for some reason with the 1% crime here, and the nephew being involved with the dope and the drugs, and needing the money to pay for his habit. It made me wonder if that maybe who Charlie Stevenson was dealing with was someone who was affiliated in a big manner with the cartel.
Yeah, these types of people seem to be connected in the underground.
And
more sophisticated than we would realize.
Yes, because the cartel, there's a certain name for a certain group of cartel. The cartels are divided up, but there was one cartel in particular that I found that the way they did ritualistic killings made me bring into question
MS-13. They're very satanic.
Yeah, and this is satanic. There was stuff left around the victims that was real, satanic.
Was this in Indiana?
No, this is in Kentucky.
Okay.
The Bill and Peggy Stevenson murder was in Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from a small town, and the truck stop was a gas station truck stop where the roadside chapel was set up at, which was not far from their original home, I believe, and wasn't too far from their new home.
I just wonder what it means. From the staging, investigators were saying that it appears that they weren't practicing Christianity correctly. I mean, what does that mean? Is that to me that seems like a conflict either with Muslims or Jewish folks. One of the two.
It would be not necessarily a conflict with other religions or different religions.
Or like Catholic and Protestant type thing, like conflicts. Is that what you mean?
Well, it could have been a conflict between a Satanist and a religious person. You know, Bill was a preacher. So it could have been that, or it could have been a conflict between their beliefs of religion and Bill's belief of religion, of exactly that the two didn't agree on just exactly the beliefs of each person, didn't agree in their beliefs of their religion.
What about Bill? His strong role as a leader, pulling somebody away from like some type of life of crime. What if he's pulling somebody towards God and away from some kind of life of crime, or where somebody was depending on him, on this individual, and then somebody got upset? Do you see anything like that?
I don't, you know, there's always a possibility, and we have to always keep an open mind theoretically about everything involved with it. It could be just a conflict between two people who were very spiritual in their beliefs, and that something triggered this person.
Well, I believe there was mention of pentagrams with the Stevenson case.
Oh, there were items that the police at the time.
I'm almost 100% sure that there was pentagrams left at the crime scene.
Well, they stated that there was that they stated that after looking into the crime, that they started looking at people that were involved in Satanism and Wicca in the area down in Kentucky during that time, but they couldn't find a connection to anybody at the time. And that kind of threw up with going back to Charlie Stevenson and, you know, his drug habit, and that kind of threw me into, and there was certain wording in that that really made me think that this could be somebody that was involved in satanic, you know, activity, who was in the drug world, and then
kind
that
of cross between Satanism and the drug trade.
Right, in the cartel. Yeah, and
a lot of times the cartels, when they move into like a Kentucky or an Indiana, it's through small gangs or through small organizations.
Yes, you are definitely right there. Santa Murta.
Yep.
Is a narco drug culture. It's a drug culture.
Satanism,
Narco.
basically. It's the Mexican Satanism is what it is.
Right. Of an evil goddess, of the Virgin Mary of Guadalupe. So there's a certain cartel that is involved in this narco culture. And the meaning of Santa Muerta, it means death of saints. Now, something I found interesting was that Bill was a pastor, a preacher, a religious holy man. So now, if you're thinking about the cartel version of this theory happening, then Santa Muerta, that is a religious narco culture within the criminal element of the cartel, and Santa Muerta means death of saints. So was the killer killing a death of a saint to him?
Before we get out of here real quick, I'm going to read this quote here. The attack on the couple was a brutal instance of overkill, which could be read as more personal motive. Some signs pointed to robbery. However, there were valuable items that would have been easy targets for theft that were left behind. Some elements even suggested a ritualistic tone to the crime, to point that law enforcement obtained a list of self-described Wiccans in the area. Final word, real quick, Shadow, before we get out of here.
I'm still looking into everything. I'll continue to look into the case until I find the answers that may help law enforcement. And hopefully I find those answers.
Post-mortem injury. One of the victims also had post-mortem injury that had been inflicted at least 2 hours before that victim died. Or, I'm sorry, 2 hours after. Sorry. So yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff, and I don't know if that I don't know why they're interested in the Delphi case, but I'm glad that you looked into that. We didn't have a whole lot of time tonight. I'm glad that you called in. I love your channel. Anything you want to throw out there before we close it out?
Just like to say, I really like what you're doing with your show.
Thanks.
Keep up the good work, and I want to tell everybody out there that I want to thank everybody that's on my channel, that's subscribed to my channel. I want to thank them, and I want to thank you, Sleuth, for giving me some shout outs off of your channel. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that.
Sure. I really do. I love your channel. I like how you're always covering everything up to date. I literally have the bell icon hit on your channel.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You got it.
And if you ever need to contact me, just leave a message in the comment section, and I'll get a hold of you.
Sure. Thank you again for calling in. Everybody out there, thanks for tuning in. The Shadow Seeks Justice. If you guys want to go check her out, that's it. I think that's going to do it. This was a quick check-in. Thank you again for making this check-in live stream great, Shadow.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. Thank you, guys. Have a great night. Good night.
Bye-bye.